Hey, Ben, hope you can hear me. Can you just write in the chat box if you can? Yeah, awesome. Hey, Ben, thanks for joining me tonight. Unfortunately, I think that the way studio works is it's only one way. So look, I won't keep you for long. I'm just psyched that somebody actually joined me tonight. Otherwise, I was going to have to phone a friend. So tell me, can you just chat into the text box? Tell me a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and why you chose One Nation. Oh, how'd you get in? Sorry, I'm just checking. Some of my friends are doing the same thing at the moment. Yeah, okay, sick one. So look, I'll kick off and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'll try to do it within 2 or 3 minutes. I'll tell you a little bit about who I am, where I'm from, why I chose to run for One Nation. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, what I'll do is I'll turn it over to you because I'm interested. If you or anyone that's watching with you at the moment has any questions, I'm keen to field them. So again, my name is Matthew Jacobson. I'm running for the federal seat of Macquarie as the candidate for One Nation. And my background is I was a school principal in Lawson. I live in Wentworth Falls. I was a school principal in Lawson for about 8 years. And in between those times, in between my experiences being a principal, I was also an officer in the high readiness for the Australian Army. Now I'm a business owner, and a couple of things happened to me recently that were quite fortuitous in me becoming a politician. And one was I run my own business, and part of what I do is I find people who might want to join the Army, or they might want to become a school principal or a deputy, or they're people looking at going into politics. And because I work in that space, what I do for those people is I work very closely with them through the process of selection. And what I thought would be really funny was about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago, I heard Pauline Hanson was running a fundraiser on the Central Coast. So I grabbed my camera gear and I went running up to a club in Tumbiumbi and thought it would be really funny to sneak in and see if I could get up close to her. And I wanted to ask her questions about leadership and what it's like pushing through that tough stuff when everybody's giving her a hard time. How does she sort of hold her how does she hold her course without giving up? So lo and behold, I walked in. I had my camera gear. I had stuff on my backpack. And what happened was her staff came up to me and said, "What the hell are you doing here? You're late." And after a couple of minutes, I realized they thought I was actually one of the photographers. And basically, I know that this is the on switch, and you press that button right here after you point the camera. That's about all I know about the camera. So within 90 seconds, Pauline Hanson had given me a job as her photographer, and I spent the whole night. There was basically Pauline Hanson here, there was me, and then there was her security detail. And I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away by who Pauline Hanson was. And yes, there are some what people might call rough edges there, but when I really got down to it and she was allowed to just speak, I learned that she just wants us all to be on an even playing field. I'm an immigrant to this country. There was no animosity there. She was like, "Burn the shit behind you. You're on my team. Let's do this." So anyway, within 2 weeks, I was signed up to run for her. So my big thing is working in the school system. I've come across different types of people. They say it's 20% of the people take up 80% of the time. I would say in my case, it was 10% of the people take up 90% of the time. And I think if we could do away with a lot of that, get back to a lot of common sense, and we could go after excessive spending, particularly by the Labor government going in there and getting us $1 trillion into debt. Pauline Hanson's One Nation, they've gone through and redlined over $90 billion out of our budget. This party can really turn it around. And I guess the last thing, just before I turn things over to question time for you, Ben, is the last thing I'd share with you is this. I had this crazy idea that I know if I'd run for one of the major parties, so if I'd run for the Labor or the Independents, I would be left towing the line for them and not representing the people that I'm supposed to be, I'm meant to be a politician for. And so I've seen with Susan Templeman, who's our local member, there are times that she was very vocal about things like our airport, and she wanted to really stick up for us. And her party said, "No, you won't be doing that." And she just goes quiet. So working outside of the major parties was something that was really important to me. And then what's left is I didn't want to be an independent because I feel independence, it just doesn't feel transparent to me. And that's a really big part of who I am. I want to lead with integrity and with honesty and transparency as best I can. I don't feel that the Teals or the Independents do that. And then when it came down to the difference between going for the Greens and going for One Nation, the Greens have people who refuse to stand next to the Australian flag. One Nation had people that drape themselves in it. So those are people that want me on their team. The Greens want to bring in laws so that if you're a Christian or a good person or a Muslim or a religious person and you don't take part in providing abortion care and you work in a hospital, they're going to make it a law so it's illegal for those people to exercise their right to be conscientious objectors. One Nation wants to stop that. And the list just goes on and on. Same thing with when we talk about net zero and climate change. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's basically our politicians went in there and they thought it would look good to sign the Paris Agreement and say, hey, yes, by 2050, we're going to capture as many, as much carbon as we can, as we put out. And they haven't really thought about how they're going to make that happen. And basically, they're saying we're going to stop coal, we're not going to go nuclear. Nobody really knows what their plan is. And a huge portion of our population and the people who've worked so hard to build this country work in coal and gas, and they're big business here in Australia. And that's not to say we don't need to move on to something else, but it just says you don't sign an agreement to tell these people in less than 25 years you're going to be out of luck. So that's a lot of the reason I feel like this. And also, I feel that people on the right, or people that are a little bit more conservative, they've lost their chance. You're considered a bigot or a racist if you share your voice. I'm not racist. I've worked in South Africa in post apartheid to bring what they've used in their political leadership back to New South Wales schools. I've worked predominantly in Aboriginal schools in New South Wales as well. And I've had a really good track record of lifting student attendance, lifting the perceptions of the parents and the people in that community and how they viewed schools and sending their children to school. And then literacy and numeracy, I turned it around as well. So I find it amazing that, if you drive down the highway, you'll see a lot more of my signs up today, but recently somebody went through and just tore them all up and drew Nazi symbols on them, trying to send me some sort of a message or put it out there that I'm some sort of Hitler or something. And it's just ridiculous that people can't ask questions and they can't voice their views without somebody throwing the racist grenade at them. So that's me in a nutshell, Ben. You are a legend for sitting here and joining me tonight. Do you have any questions for me? Oh God, I've put him to sleep. Man, Pauline Hanson is, man. They put her in jail for, I think it was 11 weeks unfairly. I have to say, if I'm going to share this with in a private capacity with you, do you know what? I had threats to my family. Basically, people when I became the principal at Lawson, there were people there that were very comfortable in their jobs and the way they were using taxpayer dollars. They were bullying kids. They were basically mishandling money. And as a principal, I went in there and I asked the question, why is this going on? I had people on a daily basis writing to the department and making complaints about me and saying, Matt screams at me in staff meetings, and then when they ask for witnesses, they say no one's there. I've had people threaten me and say, "Hey, we're going to tell everybody that you cheat on your wife and you're a terrible school leader." Man, it's that job was so it wasn't public, it wasn't out there for everybody to see the same way it was for Pauline Hanson. But in some ways, I felt my situation was a little bit worse because at least now as a political person, I can turn around to those same people who are hassling me out now and say, you know what, you're not my friend. I don't want your vote. Go away. But as a principal, you have to say, oh, that's great. I love you kicking me in the teeth. Do it some more. So yeah, I can go the distance, man. Yeah, no kidding. So tell me, what was it? I'm interested in hearing your take on things. What was it for you that got you to turn the corner and decide, um, hang on, there might be something in this with One Nation? What was it that sort of took you over the line? And are there people like you that feel the same way? Man, Have you heard of Dr. Joanna Howe? Check her out. Her name is Dr. Joanna Howe, and she's a young mom. She's got 5 kids. She's Indian by descent. I'm thinking she'd be late 20s, early 30s. She's a lawyer by trade. They had her consulting nationally on immigration. Anyway, she's the one, I think, around the same time that I became endorsed by Pauline Hanson. Did you see any of the testimony that was given by the nurses in Queensland around what it was like with late term abortions? Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. So yeah, there was a Queensland nurse that gave. Yeah, just have a look. Sorry, I got a bit of paper or something on my face, or it's probably some. Sorry, Nick. I think it was dried ice cream. Sorry, dude. Um, yeah, so the nurses were talking about now in Queensland, what they're trying to do in New South Wales is have um, make it legal to kill a baby after 22 weeks of age. And I'm sorry if you know this already. It's tough without us being able to chat properly. But basically, they inject the baby through the mom's stomach or through her uterus, rather. I'm a big boy. I know my big boy words, with cyanide. And sometimes the baby's. All right, cool. Yeah. Sometimes the baby survives for a short time out of the womb, and this nurse was just like, we have to stand there and we're not allowed to comfort the baby. You can't give it any pain relief. You have to basically just sit there and watch this baby struggling to breathe and just die. And I just remember hearing this nurse's testimony, and I don't know why, we just, out of sight, out of mind, I guess we just don't hear about it. And I heard Charlie Kirk speak from Turning Point USA, and he basically said, this is bigger than the Holocaust, where millions and millions of babies are being killed. He gave some facts around, particularly in the United States. We don't have as much readily information here in Australia, but basically there's a big percentage of women that are forced to go in and get abortions, either by their husbands who don't want the baby, so they're getting their arms twisted, and or they don't have the financial means to raise a child on their own. And One Nation, we believe in supporting families, or supporting people who want to be mothers, and that just made a huge. You and I are on exactly the same page. Abortion was the biggest one for me. Can I just ask, are you Roman Catholic by any chance, or are you do you consider yourself a good person? And why the abortion thing? I'm curious. Yeah, that's rough stuff. Yeah, it's really rough stuff. Anyway, I think if you could help me, I know so I totally get it with the signs. I'm in a position where, 2 or 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to put one of those signs, and I'm a 50-year-old man, 52-year-old man. Oh, okay, that's right. Sorry, man. I thought people from Lawson were going to turn up, so I wanted to slow them down. Um, yeah, I can't. Push up to the day before. Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah, yeah, that was probably the biggest thing for me. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The biggest thing that people like yourself can help me with is I reckon I hope for every one person that I speak to that walks away from a conversation with me and they feel, compelled or inspired to vote for One Nation. I hope you find two people and you try to have the same conversation. And here's what I say: if you vote Labor or Liberal, you're voting for the same thing. Now, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, I was on ABC Q&A, which is it's that show where they get politicians on. When I got there, they moved my senator and I up to the nosebleed seats, and our questions were taken away. We weren't going to answer. They weren't going to answer them. And I'm by no means an expert on. I know how to uh, advocate for or consult for people on things, but I don't ever claim to be an expert, particularly in climate change. I've done my homework. I turned up to the Q&A, which is where they were going to be talking about climate change. And the two parties that were up there, the guy who was speaking for the Labor Party, I'd watched that afternoon give testimony at question time. And he basically admitted to being on the payroll for environmental lobbyists. And when they said, "Don't you think that's a conflict of interest?" He said, "I did the paperwork, so I've made it public. So I can't get in trouble. And if the public don't look at what I'm doing, well, that's their problem." So what I'm trying to convince people of is to say, yes, we all think like they try to make us think that if you don't vote for one of the two major parties, that your vote is a waste. It's not. If you vote for One Nation and then you put the major parties, Labor, Liberal, Greens, and the Teals at the bottom, and then you put one for One Nation at the top, that would then mean that if I win, I can lead our community so that when I'm in Parliament, we'll have a voice there where I can be speaking up to these people. And then the same thing when you turn the page over and you look at the lower house, there's a gentleman by the name of Warwick Stacey, and Warwick Stacey is going to be the senator, and it's the same thing over there. You're giving him a chance to block bills that come through. I'm gonna have a look at your questions here. Yep, I agree with your comments on counseling. Yeah, thanks a lot. And do me a favor, like when you say you've converted or at least educated people about One Nation, Matt, give them like you found me on Facebook, but if you Google me, you'll see my name and my numbers there. I'm like, don't be a stranger. Like, I'm here to work for our community. Tell them to like I have people drop me an email all the time and say, "Hey, Matt, I'm a little bit nervous about One Nation. What can you tell me about such and such?" And just like yourself, we end up having a conversation. And I don't know, they might walk away and say, "Oh, he's a silly yank." I'm not. I'm solely Australian, exclusively Australian now. And some people are like, "All right, I'll vote for you." So I'm happy to talk to anybody. And thank you for converting people, by the way. Yeah, I was the same with labor. Yeah. What's really interesting is yeah, I've been pretty solid with liberal too. And then once I was in the army and I could sort of see the cracks behind the leadership, and I could see that even the Liberal Party, they didn't really care who we were. Yeah, I'm the same. That's when I swapped out to One Nation. Yeah, I follow policy too. If you get a chance, they're not really. I even myself as the Melissa McIntosh. Yeah, tell me. I want to know why. Man, Chris Buckley's running down in he's running down in Penrith. He is a legend, man. He's such man. He rents his house. He's he sells trucks. He's like as Aussie as you get, and he's so nice, and he's so funny. I'm just wondering if Melissa McIntosh is the lady who dresses like Nancy Reagan, who I like. Okay, yeah, keep going. I think I remember this. In Cambridge Park, no way. Okay, keep going. Yeah, I remember this now. I remember there were candles involved. I remember seeing candles. Yeah, yeah, that's okay. Okay. Our mayor up here he's a jerk. Anyway, it's your turn to talk. I'm listening. Really? Why do you think she said that? Do you think was it just petty jealousy? Yeah, 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 I know the one. Yeah, I've seen her. I've seen her running at the moment. Man, she spends a lot of money on her outfits. That's what all the liberal guys say. Man, so oh, not for Penrith. I'm listening to you. I just want to see because I know her name. So she is McIntosh, Melissa McIntosh. Yeah, that's her. Yeah, that's the one. Maybe she's not Penrith. You know what? She is. She's for Lindsay. Yeah, so she actually is she's for so she's doing what I'm doing. So she's the MP and she's trying to run for Lindsay, which includes Penrith in it. Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, yeah. Wow. So hang on, back up. I want to hear this. So do you reckon? Yeah, that's exactly right, man. That's what everybody was really upset with Susan Templeman because apparently she said she was going to help out with the airport, the traffic, the noise pollution and the rest of it. And her party said toe the line, and they never heard from her again. So was Melissa? Was she actually quite rude to you? Oh, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Man, if in my capacity as a principal, we've got so we've got our local person who is Trish Doyle, and Trish Doyle is the state. So she sits in New South Wales Parliament, and she actually used to teach at my school at Lawson Public School, and she was friends with a lot of those teachers that I was telling you about that had a pretty cushy run at things. I wasn't rude to, I was not was the least bit rude to them, but when it came to doing things the right way for your community, I just called a few things into question. And she bullied me to no end. And a couple of times when I had Susan Templeman come around, I mean, she talked to me like I was dirt, which I'm just assuming was passed down the line from Trish. But recently, I don't know if you've seen I don't know if you've seen my reels, but there's a couple of reels I did where I found that up here in the mountains, Susan's putting labor on her signs, and then down in the Hawkesbury, she's taking it off. And that's because the Hawkesbury folks tend to vote liberal, and she's trying to put one by them. So I thought, I'll be fair, I'm going to go for you, but I called her twice, I emailed her, and I turned up at her office, and she wouldn't answer the phone. She's a nightmare. If you do a little bit of dirt, dig a little bit of dirt on them, I'll just see if I can find something. You'll like this. I used a little bit of Chat GPT, and if politicians have any sort of, I don't know, record of ill behavior, it'll turn up in there. And so Susan Templeman, she accepted gifts from the Australian Ballet and from Qantas, and that's, if you don't declare them, it's considered really, it's a breach, a major breach of the code of conduct, because basically people don't give you they don't give you gifts without expecting for something in return. So if she's not telling you about it, it's probably because they were getting something in return. So tell me, where do you think the people that you're trying to talk about and convince, um, you're trying to convince to go for One Nation? Where are they from? Up here or down in Lindsay? Yeah, so Falconbridge Farm, is that the antiques place on the left-hand side of the highway? And he's usually out the front waving the flag. I went, and I'm just looking something up for you. So I can't tell you how, but I know that gentleman vicariously, who had shared some pretty inside information with this person around his experiences with local government. And so I thought, you beauty, I'm going to go down there. And I knocked on his door, and man, he's so nice. He's the nicest dude. And yeah, dude, how good is how good is his impression of Albanese? Man, he is he's like bang. That dude, he could be in comedy. Anyway, yeah, I went and I spoke to him because I'm happy to put this out here. I called our mayor, Mark Greenhill. Um, yeah, that's right. Yeah, man, I just went in there and hung out with him probably about a week ago, and he was like, "Pull up a seat." We had a good chat. He was in those overalls, and he used to teach as well. And he's had a bad run in with Mark Greenhill, who's been a monster. I called. Do you know who Mark Greenhill is? I'm assuming you do. Okay, so I actually, I don't know if he's your friend or not, but I'll just tell you what my experience is. I called him, and I introduced myself, and I just said, hey, we're both in the job of trying to get the best for our community, and I'm just, if you want to meet up, if you want to have a conversation, I'd really like to meet you face to face and say hello. And he basically said, I'll never help you. And I said, can you tell me why? And he said, because you're a racist and you run for a racist party. And then I just said, isn't it interesting that You're supposed to be the tolerant one, and I'm calling you to extend the olive branch, and you're putting your fingers in your ears. I said, that's so typical. I go, man, go look in the mirror. And he hung up the phone on me. Yeah, he plays dirty ball man. Man, have you seen? There's a black dude. There's a Fijian guy from. There's a Fijian dude from, I think he's Adelaide. And even it's, you're right. You said, and that lady from Melbourne, she's lovely. I talked to her. Yeah. Tell me about it, man. Do you know I had today? I was in Hazelbrook, and I was out in front of the shops there helping some people with the airlines. Trying to protest the flight paths or whatever. And man, I had Aboriginal people there that knew I was One Nation. There was a dude from Mist that was One Nation as well. They couldn't give. They know I'm from that party. Couldn't give a stuff. They just want to know what I'm about. And it predominantly, it's older. I'd say 65 years and over females that don't like me and won't even talk to me. I had a lady today wouldn't even shake my hand. That's brushing with a broad stroke, but for the most part, the people that attack me are from that party. Yeah, and I look. I also think it's funny. I nailed some people today who said something about yeah. Um, I spoke to some people today who said to me, "Oh, your party's really racist," and I just said, "Well, I'm not," and I explained, what I'd done. And I said, I find it really interesting that you're pointing that back at me because, like, and I explained to him, like, I got told to F off by a bunch of people from the Green Party who were uh, doing the whole free Palestine thing, which they're entitled to do. But they told me to F off back to America. They told me they hated Americans. And then in the same week, I've had, threats against myself, my family, my signs defaced. And they turn around to me and they say, oh, well, that's kind of what you get. Look who you're running for. And I just turn around and say, isn't it? I'm a person of principles. And it's like racism and picking on someone or thinking they're less than because of their beliefs or who they are is a bad thing, irrespective of who it is. And I'm like, you're moving the chess pieces around the board to make it work for you. So ultimately, I find you're the most racist person. So I said this to a Greens lady. I said, I find you really racist. Like, you refuse to shake my hand. You're putting your fingers in your ears, and it's because you don't like what I represent. I would say the only thing that could be controversial that I've noticed Pauline speak about, and I just need to find a way to articulate it a little bit better, is her concerns around Muslims in Australia. And while I don't have a problem, I'm Roman Catholic. In terms of Islam, we've actually got a close working relationship. So it's not the religion at all. It's cultural Islam. And I think if I said something to you like, hey, don't you think that Australia should be the type of country where any one of us could walk down any street in Australia and feel safe? Like, you'd probably say yes. And I can tell you, I can walk through Redfern, I can walk through Cabramatta. I wouldn't feel safe walking through Bankstown. And it's because I'm not Arab. I don't look Muslim. I don't look like I belong there. And people get attacked and people are violent there. And so that behavior isn't welcome. And I don't think we should welcome or make it easy for people who think that's okay to bring that crap with them. I don't think we should make it easy for those people to come through. Imagine if I came through, I believe in, the right to defend yourself. Imagine if I came in and just decided I was going to take guns in here because I didn't care what you guys thought and I was just going to bring guns in. I'd be on the next boat. They put me in a cannon and launch me. And Pauline, no, she's not articulate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know Muslims who agree as well. Yeah. So anyway, man, I really hope. I think it would just be the most amazing thing. I tell people if I get in, great. If I don't get um, in this next election, I'm pushing it uphill. I've got. I think the last vote, it was like 5 or 6% of the population voted for One Nation, 10% voted for, or 12% voted for the Greens, and the rest basically voted for the red blue. Hopefully, if people spin it around and the Greens and the Labours are going to preference each other's votes, all we need are those people who are, disheartened by Labour to give us their votes, and for the people who are disheartened by the Liberals to give us their votes because the Liberals aren't conservative anymore. And we get some preferencing, we've got a shot at it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I do. I don't know what I do. I really, I guess it's the Aussie in me. I really like sticking it to people. A lot of the people I'm running against are people that like. I hate bullies. I hate bullies. And even today, I sat down with some Greens people who were not nice, and I extended the olive branch. And I just thought, you know what? Every single speech that I have to give, because they do these things called Meet the Candidate. I'll send you some links for some. You'll find it cool. And also, if you get a chance, Thursday nights, there's a dude that does a Blue Mountains radio broadcast. His name's Kirby. It's called Lemon Squeezy, and I sat on it last week with him. It was a lot of fun. You'd like it, but yeah, I'd wait another 4 years and probably. I don't know. I might run. I might just keep running just to stick it up their backsides. Do you know what? That's a really good question. You want? I'll tell you the. I'll tell you the inside. Um, I had a financial windfall. That's what's happened. So basically, um, I got to, so yeah. If it had been any other time in my life, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to do it. So it costs. I'll tell you all the costs. I know it's embarrassing for people, but the costs are: you need, just to run for One Nation, you pay $2,000 to the Australian Electoral Commission, and that's basically, it's kind of their little way of making sure that everybody wearing a spaghetti strainer with tinfoil on it doesn't put their hat in the ring to run. So you pay them a $2,000 deposit, and if you get a certain percent, I think it's like 4%, they give you your money back because it shows that you really had a crack. And then I had to pay another $2,500 to. I had to pay another $2,500 to One Nation, and in doing that, that gives me access to all their resources, and it supplied me with business cards. I got a ton of T-shirts here that nobody will wear, and little bits and pieces like that. And then you have to imagine, I've got a house with a mortgage. I got to keep the heat on, the gas, the water. I got 3 cars, all that sort of stuff. I just got really lucky. I've paid my mortgage ahead. I've paid my cars out, and you're not allowed to work. I can work for myself. I do a bit of photography and some other bits and pieces just to bring a little bit in here and there. But look, I'm an old geezer. I don't drink alcohol. I'm not going to the pub and doing that sort of thing. So I'll keep reading your questions. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, so the guy, you should check him out. His name is Warwick. So it's spelled War, WAR. It's pronounced ICK at the end. So Warwick. It's written Warwick, and the surname is Stacy. And this dude, he's like 75. Oh, cool. He's 75 years old. Man, he's ex SAS, he's ex commando. This dude, I reckon, would just beat the living snot out of me. Funniest dude, really nice, down to earth. And he dropped some big bucks, like some big bucks on running for this, and it's just because he, if you ever get like the stereotypical, you know, kind of right wing male that just can't stand the nonsense. He's not homophobic. He's not racist. I've never heard anything remotely that way inclined come out of his mouth. He's just like, I can't believe that labor has pissed $1 trillion up the wall, and people aren't. He's more ropeable about that than he is anything else. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And what we're trying to push people to do is get them to put the major parties down at the bottom. So even with the Greens, like, so personally, this is how I'm doing it. I'm going to put Labor last. They get my vote the last. And then I'm going to give the Greens second to last, because if they preference each other, they both got crap um, outcomes. And then I'll put the liberals just above that, and then I'll work my way up to the top. And honestly, in our area, we've got Family First and the Libertarians, and I've got people hounding me for this, but personally, I think, Libertarians are conservative. Family First are much more about protecting families, and that's more important to me. So I'll probably preference them. Yeah, tell me, how do you do it? Okay, I like where you're going with this. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think that's more or less how I'll do it. Do you know who you're going to put second? Because you're gonna have a choice between One Nation, Family First, and Libertarians. Yeah, for me, the number one most important thing is the political party's position on abortion. It's not the only thing, but that's the most important thing. And Family First, their approach to Family First is a real tough, to abortion is a real tough one, and they're like, at no cost to human life, uh, should an abortion occur, which is pretty tough. But I think if you get somebody like that, in, they're gonna temper everybody else. And I've been told, don't make too much of a fuss about being, Christian or whatever, and don't make too much of a fuss about abortion. But I'm absolutely gonna make a fuss about abortion. I mean, I love moms. I'm best friends with my mom. I've got a mom in this house, and it was, Mother Teresa said, mothers have the most important job in the world. Yeah, that's right. Do you have any idea in the United States how many women who get impregnated by rape or incest seek abortions? Out of all of them, like, if you had to put a number on how many women that comes as that, for a result, just take a wild guess. It's half of 1%. I'll double check it. It's 0.5% of. So if there were 100 people that lined up, a half of 1%. And the number one, now listen to this whole thing for me, please, because you're going to think I'm going down a really bad road, but just hear me out. In the United States, because they won't give us the data here in Australia, but in the United States, 86% of abortions are sought by single Black women. So if you had 86 people, if you had 100 people lined up looking for abortions, half of one of those people would have been rape or incest. 86 of them would have been African American women. And that's not because there's anything intrinsically wrong with Black culture. It's because there has been a breakdown in the African American family. And whether it's access to good schools. Like I know they can't get teachers to go into the tougher neighborhoods. And I don't think enough effort has been placed into protecting that community and their families and making sure fathers are with their children. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know that we could make such a big difference if we supported those families. Because you got to imagine what percent of that 86 do you think really want to go through with what they're doing and think it's their sexual rights being exercised? I just don't see that happening. Yeah, that's the family planning folks, and there aren't enough resources for them. They just give them a pat on the back and say, it's okay, don't feel bad. A lot of women go through it, and they try to make you feel better for it. Yeah. Somebody very, very close to me had a position where was told, they were going to have a baby, and then at the last minute told no, and that they were going to be abandoned if they didn't take a pill. And it caused untold damage. I mean, this is where I'm thinking, where are the feminists then, when there's men forcing women to do that? They're using it as control and violence towards women, but because they've just got it locked in that this is their right, they don't want to discuss that. Anyway, I think we're just about. I've got about 40 seconds left on my stream. Man, it was so good meeting you. I'll text you back and forth a little bit, because I'll be doing the Q&As again. Man, see if some of your friends want to come in. I'd love fielding questions, and hopefully I'll see if I can find some other technology where we can, whether we do Zoom or something like that, and we can chat back and forth. How's that sound? Yeah, good man. Yeah, I'll do that, man. Keep in touch. Would you be interested in chatting again? Yeah, cool. If you get a chance, look up on Facebook. There's a guy. His name's Warren Ross, I think it is. He just started a Facebook page called Katumba. His posts are a little bit too rightward leaning for me, and it's not that I've found anything racist. It's just that he's in a position where it's just some of that childish behavior that it's not a place for me to get involved with. But he doesn't pull any punches when it comes to talking about the shenanigans of the left. So it's called Katumba, and if you get in, he's trying to build a page from scratch now. I'm actually doing a Meet the Candidates event in Katumba on, I think it's Saturday the 16th of April. So I think it's it's coming up in about another week's time. I'd love to meet you up there. I could use some support. Have a good one, man. See you, dude.